When typing so many reviews, for example, I have wrote almost 1,000 reviews to date, a keyboard becomes a really essential part of my experience. And to be honest, almost 500 written reviews have been written on very affordable entry-level keyboards that today I bring you something unique. This is the AKKO Mountain Seclusion keyboard. It is a keyboard I would recommend to audiophiles, and that's a very wild statement, but it would make sense in just a few moments. The price for the Mountain Seclusion is 119 US dollars, almost 120, very affordable compared to most mechanical keyboards. And for reference, the keyboard that I've used the most throughout the past year has been the Keychron Q6 Max. But there are advantages and disadvantages to each. First off, Mountain Seclusion is the only keyboard that I know of on the market which can be purchased for such a low price, which uses a wooden frame. Like the entire keyboard frame is made of wood. While wood as a material would make sense for most audiophile products, let's say headphones or speaker cabinets, on a keyboard it has the beautiful effect of doing this. Now listen to this. See, this is the kind of sound which is a very satisfying poppy sound, which can be done when you use actual wood in the frame of the keyboard. The rest of the keyboard is just as ingenious, at least, so it is a very solid product. Like, you won't get it to flex because it's made of wood. The single piece of wood actually is not disassemblable. You basically just have to remove the keycaps if you want to get on the inside. This is a wireless keyboard, a wired keyboard, and it uses a little USB adapter to connect to your computer. The signal strength is the only weakness that I could find on this keyboard. So you have to have both the keyboard and the little wireless receiver, I would say, within line of sight. If they are not within line of sight with each other, you may have some missed presses or some double key presses. You really have to keep them close to each other. But otherwise, this is the most solid small form factor keyboard out there. I'm saying small form factor because most keyboards, or at least if you come from a background of doing office work or programming, they would look like this. This is the Keychron Q6 Max. This is a 100% keyboard. It includes everything, including the numpad, which is those numbers here, arrow keys, function keys, the function row above, and also the letters, all of which are needed for different purposes. I cannot really use a small keyboard like the Mountain Seclusion for programming. I can't get used to searching for the variables on the upper number row. For me, as a programmer, I really need the numpad. I'm really eager to see AKKO doing a 100% keyboard with a wooden frame. They do make some 100% keyboards, but none of them use a wooden frame like the Mountain Seclusion. You can use the Mountain Seclusion wired, and it needs to be connected by wire to charge. The battery lasted me between 5 and 10 days of usage. It really depends on how much I type on it. Also, if you turn the lights on or off, it does have light effects, as you can see here. I couldn't really get them in the photos or in the video b-rolls. The effect is not quite that strong, especially because the keycaps are very high quality, but they are not very transparent. The space between the keycaps is quite small, so you can't really see the light shining through. The keycap is very stable. For example, if I wiggle on it, it doesn't really give in any direction. This means that it's one of the most solid, reliable keyboards. The spacebar sound is the same across the entire spacebar. As you can see, there is no metal ping or any kind of problem. This means that AKKO used very high quality stabilizers, which help with this sound. The usage of the keyboard is pretty much flawless. I really love, to the point where I really love using the AKKO Rosewood switches with this main keyboard. It is a very pleasing typing experience. I mean, absolutely delightful. You hear this popping. The microphone is right here, so you really hear this popping wooden sound, which is excellent. Like, this is how good it is. On the other hand, not having the function row is quite bad for programming because I can't really quickly debug or use other stuff. Although you can press the function key and 1, 2, 3, 4 for F1, F2, F3. So if you get used to using the FN function plus certain keys, you can totally get on board with most stuff. The only stuff I couldn't get used to, because I learned to program on an old school keyboard, like at the school, I had grown used to using the numpad. Without a numpad, I'm quite lost. One of the things you may have noticed on the Keychron Q6 Max that I have is that I have those rubbers on the back. Those are actually to angle it a bit higher because for my hands it seems that I feel more natural if it is angled more like this, like more to my face. I need the back to be a bit higher. I did glue those on the mountain seclusion too because I also prefer having it a bit higher, but in this default state the angling is a bit better, so it's a bit higher by default. It feels more natural. Having a smaller keyboard is in fact more natural. I didn't really believe or even give any thought to it before having the mountain seclusion, because with my Keychron Q6 Max I typically just hit on the keyboard with the mouse quite often, like up, poke, and then I hear a loud bang. I banged the mouse on the keyboard. That did not happen with the mountain seclusion. It is much smaller and more ergonomic. Also, because it is smaller, I tend to type a bit better, and it's quite funny, but when you have a smaller keyboard your hands will stay closer together. This means that most of the letters will be more naturally within access and you will get used to typing quite a bit faster. On the Keychron Q6 Max, because I'm used to always having the right hand cover both the numpad and the right area of the keyboard, I tend to both type a bit slower and also type a bit noisier. One thing that is interesting is that on the Q6 Max, I did replace the keycaps and I did replace the switches. I did take some older recordings with normal red switches. Actually, those were the smoothest switches on the planet, the Everglide Aqua King, but since then I replaced them with the Frozen King from TTC. Those are silent switches, so nowadays I type mostly with silent switches. As you can see, Keychron Q6 Max doesn't really have a noise, like look at this. You can actually order silent switches from AKKO and you can replace the switches on the mountain seclusion. Everything about the mountain seclusion is modular, you can replace every single part. Mountain seclusion also has a gasket support, which means that it gives in a bit when you press on it really hard, which tends to eliminate some of the finger fatigue that you feel when typing. I find that quite pleasing. And this golden line accent here really makes it beautiful on your desk. I don't really have many other wooden components on my desk. Most of them are either silver metal or black metal, but the mountain seclusion really adds a bit of style to my desk. Now, at $119 US, the MU01 mountain seclusion is one of the most beautiful keyboards that I tested to date. It is one of the best sounding, if not absolutely the best sounding, but it has a sound. If you want a keyboard which doesn't have a sound, you can purchase the mountain seclusion and replace the switches with silent switches. AKKO makes the fairy silent switches. I have not tested those yet, but I did test the AKKO Crystal Pro and the AKKO Creamy Black Pro switches. AKKO Creamy Black Pro version 3 is a lubed switch, which means that it is quite smooth to typing. I feel like it is a bit smoother than the Everglide Aqua King, if not within the same ballpark. I'm not that enthusiastic about the smoothness, but it is a slightly harder switch, so it has that black sound. Most black switches tend to have a more poppy, louder sound. You can even hear it on the switch alone, you don't even have to install a keycap on it. So this pak 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 sound, you see, this is how a black switch would sound like. It is quite loud, it's a bit more mid-pitched, and it makes quite a bit of sound. Also, it's harder on my fingers than the default rosewood switches. So I decided not using the Black Pro switches in the end, although I do feel like the black switches are better for someone who's just starting with purchasing a high-end keyboard, or for someone who likes a bit of loudness when they type, someone who likes a bit of extra pump when they type, but for someone who doesn't mind a harder key press. It's important, you have to like that, to like the black switches. Crystal Pro switches are transparent, which is very nice because they give you a much more beautiful light effect on the mountain seclusion and other keyboards. The sound of the switch, the sound that you're hearing here, is very similar to what you hear when installing them on the keyboard. Usually it is similar. So if you listen to this, the sound is a bit higher pitched. It's a beep, 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 not pop, 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 like the black switches. And also the smoothness is a bit better on the transparent one. So although it is not quite as lubed, it feels more natural to press on it. Quite interesting difference. I actually do prefer the rosewood switches on the mountain seclusion. They are the most poppy sound. They have the most wooden sound and I like them the best, both because of their sound and of the typing feel. And my favorites so far have been silent switches, at least ever since trying them, because I work in the same room as my wifey and I don't want to disturb her with my typing. typing almost 1,000 written reviews takes quite a bit of time typing. So every single time I type, I create some noise. To create less noise and to give my wifey a better home and a better life, I decided for silent switches. She will be getting silent switches too, so I'm getting her a keyboard with silent switches as well, because it's better. Wow. She also did not get used to the smaller form factor with the mountain seclusion, but happily AKKO makes a larger mountain seclusion, although not 100%. I'm looking forward to that, AKKO. Please make a 100% mountain seclusion. I'm sure programmers would love it. At the end of the day, AKKO created highly affordable products. Mountain seclusion is just $120. This is much less than Razer asks for their keyboards, Asus keyboards, even some Red Dragon keyboards are more pricey, and yet all of them offer a much worse typing and usage experience. AKKO switches are also some of the better switches on the market. They are much better than Gateron switches because originally I had keyboards with Gateron Red Pro and with Gateron Yellow, Gateron Banana. I tried a lot of Gateron switches. I never made a video on Gateron switches because the quality was just not yet there. If you want a keyboard which is made of wood, which has a hi-fi sound, which sounds and feels audiophile, if you want a keyboard which is delightful to use, I totally recommend the AKKO Mountain Seclusion MU01. It is a beautiful keyboard and it is totally worth your attention. I will likely be reviewing very few other keyboards because right now I'm slowly stabilizing my setup and I don't really want to turn Audiophile Heaven into a keyboard channel. What I wanted to do is share with you the most interesting ones that I come across. I would be covering some of them in writing if I find something interesting, especially new tech like magnetic hull switches and stuff. But until then, I hope that you are enjoying the channel, enjoying the video. Don't forget to subscribe, like the video, and watch more videos if you like our content here. Thank you so much for watching and we'll see each other really soon. Bye bye.